My name is Rikki Jones, and I'm a submarine structural engineer working for Babcock. And I got my Whitworth Award, or my Whitworth Scholarship, in 2017.
Rikki, you began as an apprentice. Can you take us through that journey, please?
Okay, so it was back in 2005. I started working for Babcock as an apprentice fabricator welder, which was I started out at the college and then practically working and learning the hand skills. From there, I developed and gained a technical grounding in engineering at college and university.
But there was a hunger that was driving you. What was that?
I had a desire. When I was an apprentice, I gained lots of practical experience, but I always had a desire to keep learning and to understand more about what sat behind the things I was doing, the tasks I was doing. So that's what drove me to go to university and to further develop my understanding of engineering.
And how did you come across the scholarship?
The Whitworth Scholarship was first introduced to me by a colleague in Babcock who had embarked on the journey. He had applied for a scholarship and been successful. So it was through a friend, really. And then when I read more about it, and I read more about Joseph Whitworth himself, I realised there was a lot of common themes with his interests as to mine, and I found his publications very interesting to read. And I found I was learning a lot from that. So,
what was it about him that drew you to him? I mean, he was a very interesting man. There was a lot of innovation, a lot of business that he put together. But what was it about him that really interested you?
I think it was his emphasis and his focus on quality, and he had a very holistic approach to problems. He often thought he was a very big picture thinker, so he thought not only about what he was doing, but the wider implications of it. So he was interested in the economy, developing engineers, the quality of materials, accuracy and precision. So it was all of these sort of things, which is things which are ingrained into myself during my apprenticeship.
And have you felt the impact of the scholarship? In other words, has it benefited you? Have you gone through the journey and are now realizing in what ways it's impacting your life?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think the greatest thing is the network of great engineers right across industry who I now have access to. Not only do we share a common interest, but we're all very passionate about what we do, and there's always somebody that you can speak to about a problem you may be facing, and who would share ideas with you how to overcome it. So
yeah, and if you look at the wider industry, the engineering industry of which you're a part of, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges at the moment for engineers?
Okay, I think there's obviously a national shortage of engineers in the UK. So that's a major challenge itself, getting enough people into engineering. I feel that there is still one of Sir Joseph Whitworth's visions was to bring science and industry closer together, and I think what he meant by that was you had lots of very industrial people, but they didn't necessarily understand the science behind what they were doing, and you had lots of very clever scientists, and he wanted to bring those two together because he felt, and although in modern manufacturing that is true, in modern engineering, science and industry are quite closely embedded, I feel there's still a disconnect between the apprentices and the graduates, and I think that is a major challenge. I think that my ideas would be to pull those two together somehow.
So looking at the future of engineering and kind of looking ahead now, what do you think are some of the most urgent issues that need to be dealt with? What are the most urgent projects that need to be undertaken? Where do you start? What do you do to improve on what you've just spoken about?
Well, I think notoriously as engineers, we're not great at publicising what we do. So I think it's about getting the word out there. I've had a great career so far in what I'm doing, which has been really diverse and interesting. So it's about celebrating that and making others aware of the opportunities to be had. And then once we get more talent, more people interested and more talent in engineering, I think we can start to push the boundaries further. We're always pushing boundaries as engineers, and I'm not saying that we don't do a great job now, but I think it's the volume of people. We need more people interested.
So if you were standing in front of a classroom of young people who are considering careers in engineering, what would you say to them? How would you make them realize that it is a fascinating career?
That's a good question. I think I would be able to share some experiences, probably, is where I would start. I would probably try and reflect on my own personal experience and where I was at that age, which is obviously quite difficult when you think about it. Even though I'm quite young, it still seems an age ago since I was at school. So I think I'd try and make it relevant to them. I think one of the things I was fascinated with was how things were put together, how things were made. And I was always breaking things as a child because I was always ripping things apart. So I think it would be about, I think I take great pride in being able, I always say to my nephew, who's like 9, he always comes to me saying, "Can you fix this, Uncle Rikki?" And I say, you know I can fix anything. And he likes that. He thinks it's amazing that. So I think maybe I would try and sell that point as an initial. I don't know. I'd probably need to give some more thought to say how to get them more interested. But
just in terms of your daily work, I mean, what kind of things do you get involved in, and what kind of work do you actually do?
Well, that's a good question as well. Quite a wide range of things actually. There's the pure engineering side, which is looking at a practical problem and that we might be facing, and how do we overcome it. So there's some analysis involved in that, which involves calculations and things like that. But then there's a more practical side to it, where you have to actually understand the reality of what you're trying to do. So there's that side. I do quite a bit of project management as well. So dealing with contractors and setting them off on tasks that we need completed. There's lots of engagement with people in other businesses, and visiting platforms, ships and submarines.
If you had to bump into Sir Joseph on the street today, imagine that he was here. He had somehow managed to go through a time warp. What do you think he would make of the world today, and what would you be most interested in discussing with him?
Well, first, there's a few points on this actually. I think that he would feel very proud because some of the visions he had back in the 1800s are now at the heart of everything that we do in manufacturing and engineering in the UK. So I think he'd have a great sense of pride on that. I think he would still recognise that there is always scope for improvement, which is, as engineers, is a key principle that we always keep developing and we're always learning. You never know it all. And I think he would have a very close interest in one of my earlier points about bringing the graduate and apprentice schemes closer together.
What would you be most interested in telling him? If there's one thing you could tell him.
What would I be interested in telling him? One thing? Wow. I probably could go on all day, but for me it would be telling him about my experience through the apprenticeship and my involvement I have nowadays working closely with graduates and apprentices, to push the point that I think that there's work that can be done that can bring the two schemes together.
And I suppose that his legacy has come across 150 years, a century and a half, and is still impacting people today, which is fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. I would. I probably would be very interested in discussing his viewpoint before because obviously he was a great inventor. So where did these ideas come from? What drove him? We know a bit from what we've read, but you could find out a lot more from speaking to him in person, I'm sure. And
finally, parting words to people who are considering the scholarship but may be on the fence about it. What would you say to them?
I would say 100% go for it. It's a very unique experience. it's taken me to some great places. I've met some great people, and it just adds another element to your life in engineering. So yeah, go for it. Grab it with both hands.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.